Thank you.
All right. I don't know if you see me, Tim, or not.
Yep.
Okay, second. All right, I would like to call to order the September 24th, 2001 meeting of Human Services and Community Safety Council Committee. First, I'd like to read, due to concerns of exposure to the coronavirus, the city has implemented measures to protect our community, including the closing of council city chambers and limiting public attendance to electronic means only. Members of the public may attend the meeting virtually through Cisco WebEx events or view the meeting recorded by visiting tempe.gov/clerk for more information. It is important to understand that no formal or decision about city programs, policies, or budgets will be happening here. Our role in this committee is to explore various topics with staff and stakeholders and community members and make recommendations to our council and colleagues. We want the process to be transparent, inclusive, and easy for you to be part of whenever you choose to be. And you can share your thoughts with us by filling out a comment card for any item that might be agendized by reaching out to us directly with any other questions or ideas. To fill out the council card, we need to fill out the comment card in advance so that we can read it into the record for any agendized item. The link to the comment cards can be found in our committee webpage at tempe.gov/HSCS. And you will also find contact information for committee members and staff there for non-agendized questions as well. So with that, I apparently have called the meeting to order, and I'm going to go ahead and move on August 27th meeting minutes. I'm sorry. Are we going to have that approved by Councilman Garland, or did I?
I'll just second it. So I second them.
Okay, perfect. They have
All right.
seconded.
There you go. Then we'll move on to item 3 is public comments. The committee welcomes public comment according to the Arizona Open Meeting Law, and the committee may only discuss matters listed on the agenda. Matters brought up by the public under public appearances that are not listed on the agenda cannot be discussed by the committee. There is a 3-minute limit per person that will be in effect. So Tim, do we have any comment cards?
Councilmember, no, we do not.
All right, thank you very much. So the next item on the agenda is the committee sessions items, the current items and agenda updates. 4A is committee session items. Joel.
We're going to go ahead and do a presentation from the Human Service Department update. And I'm going to welcome Naomi Farrell and Deputy Human Service Director Lavon Laney.
Hey, Paul, do you want me to make you the presenter?
I'm sorry.
Tim, could you please, so we could share a presentation? That would be wonderful.
Yep.
Tim, are you able to see the presentation, sir?
No, we do not see a presentation.
Moment.
There you go, Paul. We can see it.
Thank you.
Good afternoon, it's Naomi Farrell, Human Services Director. Today we're just going to give a brief update on the Human Services Department. We'll cover housing inventory and affordability analysis. We'll go over the Tempe Family Advocacy Center update, and then a brief update on the department restructure. I'm going to turn it over now to Levon Lamy, who will go over the housing inventory.
Good afternoon. As a part of an update on the housing inventory and affordability analysis, just a little bit of context and history. This was presented to the full council during a work study in April of this year. During that work study, it was requested and there was consensus to go back to the consultant we used to add a 10-year projection. So that 10-year projection has been done. We'll be providing the results of that projection here shortly. But as part of the study objective, just for anyone who wasn't part of the April presentation, it is to do an inventory of what housing is available in Tempe. It is a complete unit count. So this does look at all single family, multifamily, complexes, duplexes, evaluate their affordability, understand what area median income level these units, whether they're home ownership or rental options, are available to. We do this on a citywide basis, and this is also evaluated on a zip code by zip code basis so that we have a full understanding of what our housing inventory is and its affordability. We also, as part of this housing inventory, included a 1-mile buffer from the city boundaries and evaluating the affordability within that, the municipal boundaries of that zip code and within a 1-mile radius. As part of this, we also compared ourselves to Boulder, Colorado, Durham, North Carolina, and Provo, Utah. We have been using those as benchmark cities because they're a comparable size, have reasonably comparable sized university in them, so that we can just kind of have some type of benchmark to evaluate. And those were identified several years ago as part of our What Works Cities initiative at that time. Moving into the next slide, again, just as a little refresher for anyone who wasn't part of the April work study, the overall median family income for the Phoenix Metropolitan Statistical Area, or the Phoenix Valley, has gone up by $6,200, or a 10% growth rate from 2016 to 2018. So that did, makes a little bit of a difference. In our housing inventory, however, when you're looking at our affordables, which is defined as 0 to 80% of the area median income, 53% of the total overall stock is available to 80% or below incomes. Workforce, which is defined as 80, 81% to 120%, 23 of the total housing market in Tempe is available for workforce. 17% is available for market at 120% to 200%, and 7% is available for luxury. One thing that is important to note for context is of the affordable at 0 to 80%, there is a deficit of units for the 0 to 50% area median income, which are the extremely low, very low income households. And those are the areas where the affordable housing strategies, the Tempe Coalition for Affordable Housing, Inc., or the affiliate, and a lot of the focus is put to make sure that we are shoring up and creating unit inventories for the 0 to 50% area median income households, while we're also cognizant of workforce, which is, we work through Hometown for All and even some of the federal programs for that. Moving into the next slide, excuse me. So on the updated inventory, as part of that council request, there was a projection done taking this out for 10 years. The overall summation of the projections, based on the assumptions that were utilized, is that in the next 10-year period, if we, the city of Tempe, continue doing what we have been doing, we will hold relatively steady to our current housing blend of affordable workforce and market. That is based on the affordable housing strategy document. That is based on what we have been doing through the federal funds, acquiring and preserving permanently affordable rental housing. It also includes the Hometown for All initiative and that $2 to $4 million a year, whatever that works out to be as far as an equivalent to 50% of the building permits, keeps us holding relatively steady with our current market. Again, that is a projection based on the factors at the time. So obviously, as things change, market factors change, this would be subject to change. And as we do our next inventory, we would go back and we would ask that the projection be updated based on the market factors at that time. But overall, if we continue doing what we're doing with the continued emphasis, we would be able to maintain the blend of units that we currently have. And just as one piece of that calculation that I did fail to mention earlier, this also takes into consideration the environmental clearance on the parcels on Apache. So it's looking at the totality of what the city is doing towards affordable and workforce housing. So that is the overall update on the projections, and I will hand it over to Paul.
Levon, can I ask a question before we go over?
Yes, sir.
So with our projections of affordability in the 0 to 30, the 30 to 50 range, obviously it's a lower number, but nationally, is that acceptable? Is the percentage acceptable, I guess, in those ranges? How do we fare with the nation? Are we above those percentages? So what I'm trying to get at, obviously, we hear we want affordability. There's no affordability, but at the same time, we're not saying, hey, half of Tempe is affordable at 0 to 30, right?
Right.
What is the range, I guess, that's acceptable? Does that make sense?
Councilmember Navarro, it makes sense there. As part of what we were doing with the work with What Works Cities a few years ago, and in looking at comparable cities and trying to determine what a reasonable blend was, we're actually in a very good position.
Yep.
Our 0 to 80 affordability is actually a little bit higher than some of our comparable jurisdictions that we were looking at. Part of the, what I believe it's 4.09 for the city strategic measure was for us to work to maintain the blend that we have, because we're actually in a very good position. So a lot of what we've been doing is working to maintain that blend, which is very healthy, on the affordability, the 0 to 80, even the workforce at the 81 to 120. We're slightly better than some of our other comparable jurisdictions and even some of our larger jurisdictions when it comes to that. We do know that we have the 0 to 50 where we have a deficit, and obviously that we focus quite a bit on that to make sure that we are creating those housing opportunities.
Right. And just for clarity, when you say housing, is this including rentals like the new developments in downtown, West 6, those things?
This includes all housing options, ownership, rentals,
Okay.
all of the above. Now we do not, when we do the inventory, we do not take any building that does not have a C of O issued.
Okay.
So as these new buildings come online in the next few years, they would then be included in this inventory, and it would adjust our blend a little bit, obviously, but if there's not a C of O, we're not counting it right now.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
Sir.
Levon, this is Doreen. So I have a question. So when was the last time that this housing inventory was done or updated?
So this is the update that we worked on through the bulk of calendar year 2020,
Okay.
utilizing the most recent and the most current information that was available through the census, the 5-year ACS. And then with going back to work on the projections, it did take us and the consultants a little while to analyze all the information. So, but this is based on 2020 information.
Okay. And the other thing I have is it would be really helpful, because as Jill said, we get a lot of questions or emails or calls or something about the affordable housing and how low it is in the city of Tempe. Is it possible to get some of this information that's kind of easy, user-friendly to be able to read, to put something like that in our Friday packet so that this information is available to residents? Not that it's going to make anything better, but I just think having this information, and it's great to have this and have you guys come to our committee meeting and share this with us. But it also might be nice to be able to have something like this that we can put on the Friday packet that's easy to read, you know, a couple of these graphs on here that you've used to be able to share that anybody can reach in and grab and wanted, if they wanted to look at that. Is that possible?
Councilmember Garland, it's absolutely possible. And now that we've presented the results of the projections, we can and will work with the PIO's office to get kind of a one-page informational put together for council and the public. And we would also be putting it on the Human Services, Housing Services website for easy access.
Awesome. Thank you so much. That's all.
Moving on to an update for the Tempe Family Advocacy Center. Just as for those who may have not been aware, when it comes to family advocacy centers, they're a national best practice to serving victims of crime. FACs provide trauma-informed services by centralizing all victim assistance, forensic examinations, and investigative processes to limit the re-victimization of individuals and families by removing barriers to accessing these services. Supportive services such as crisis stabilization, counseling, temporary emergency housing, connection to school supports, and provision of immediate basic needs like clothing and food result in increased engagement and eventual healing for the victim and the family. Ensuring that the process is easy to access and navigate will reduce the likelihood of future incidents and can mitigate the long-term effects of the trauma experienced by the victim. Through the fiscal year 22 budget process, Mayor and Council supported the implementation of a Tempe Family Advocacy Center. Multiple partners are working together to transition the center's planning process to full implementation. These partners are City of Tempe Human Services, Tempe Police Department, Arizona State University, and Honor Health. Some key components of a FAC. So although a FAC can serve many different victims, the main focus is on victims of family violence and child sex crimes. The Advocacy Center is tailored to serve a variety of victims and their needs, and it's not a one-size-fits-all concept. Some specific components that we all should expect when the Family Advocacy Center is fully implemented is that it's a single facility for all services, that there's administrative offices for those who need to have availability for trainings and meetings, that there's comfortable rooms designed specifically for children and teens and adult victims to receive services, that there's a separation of examination rooms appropriate for children and adults. Special rooms are available for equipment to be used for recording interviews, that there's going to be dedicated interview rooms, separate areas for counseling services, kitchen and dining area for staff and victims, storage for victim supplies, and a quiet room for staff. When we speak about the services or the resources that are needed and available for the center, the Human Services Department, Tempe Police Department, and Arizona State University currently have staff to support this center. This includes crisis responders, victim advocates, detectives, counselors, and a comfort K-9 who we know as Sully. While preliminarily, this chart shows positions by department that would be assigned to the FAC. Partners are getting together on a consistent basis, actually weekly basis now, towards implementation, have reviewed this chart to ensure that we're in alignment, and we're also discussing some room for growth. So the FAC's fiscal year 22 budget will fund the lease of an approximately 10,000 square feet facility over a 5-year period. And as of today, the FAC partners have completed site visits of multiple locations. Staff is currently negotiating with one of these property owners, and staff goal is to open the doors to serve our community in January of 2022.
Good afternoon. So I'm going to do a brief overview of the Human Services Department and its restructure. So the Human
Can I ask a question real quick on the last topics that we were just on, the Family Advocacy Center? I feel like we need to have, I don't know, like fireworks behind you when you're talking about this, or a cheerleading squad on the side, just, you know, pumping us all up, because it's so exciting that we're doing this Family Advocacy Center. And I know that it's, you know, a process that's been going on or been talked about for a while. And since 2015, the the Family Advocacy Commission and Councilmember Cubie have been, fighting for this and really trying to let us all see the value in this. And I'm just so excited that we are going to finally be doing this. I can barely sit still. So I'm so glad that we're moving on with this. I do have a couple questions on that specifically, though. Have we identified any locations for where we might be able to put this, or are we working on that right now?
Councilman Garland, yes, we have searched multiple locations, and we have identified one that is north of the 60, and so it's a location. So since we're in negotiations, we're not sharing that location yet because it's not finalized. But we have identified a location in which all partners are very excited. It's meeting many of the requirements. Well, it's meeting the requirements, but also some of the nice to haves as far as accessibility and some built-in security and so forth. And so, yes, we've identified a location north of the 60, east of rural, I can say that for now, that we believe has very high potential.
Okay, that's great. Thank you so much. And I also want to say that I really love the partnership of being able to bring the Human Services Department at Tempe, the PD, ASU, and Honor Health, bringing all of these stakeholders in that we are working together for our community. I'm really excited about us doing that. I do have one more question though. Will Care 7 be housed in this building?
Councilmember Garland, yes, multiple sections of Care 7 will be there, not all, but many. So the victim advocates, counseling, a trauma healer, as well as far as some of the crisis responders. So yes, Care 7 will have a significant footprint in this facility.
Okay, great. Thank you very much.
Hey, Paul, just one more follow-up question on this, and this is great stuff, obviously. The support behind the scenes, getting the instant paperwork, the material, just the getting the information for the victims so that so they can process and everything like that. So I'm told that we have delays in that area often due to staffing. If there is something that you guys can identify that says, hey, we need 1 or 2 more people with support services behind the scene, just the administrative guidance of getting those reports done if we're claiming, so to speak, we want to turn over in 2 weeks, anybody from the public can have a report on crimes that have been done against them, whatever it is. But if our turnaround time takes 12 weeks, we have a problem, right? So I'm trying to ask if we have identified it, if we have not have identified it, to help this section, and not only this section, but maybe other sections. Please identify that and just kind of give us a gauge what would be needed to help support that, if that makes sense.
Absolutely. Councilor Navarro, thank you for your input and the support that you all are providing. It's significant from the council as a whole and for you, the two of you as well. So yes, we are evaluating as we're moving forward where we may have additional needs that weren't quite expected. And if those are coming to the forefront, we will be coming forward in the appropriate manner through the budget process for asks if we need those. Yes.
Perfect. Thank you.
Great.
Thank you.
Human Services Department was formed in 2015. And since then, the department's programs and service offerings have grown rapidly to meet community needs. The growth includes the reincorporating of the Kids Zone program in fiscal year 1920. Kids Zone, which was originally part of the Social Services Division prior to the formation of the Human Services Department. Growth is also through the securing of the external funding, like grants and partnerships. For example, the Housing Services Work Group has grown by over 40% through additional federal and regional funding streams and developed a nonprofit affiliate to expand access to affordable housing. So as a result of this continued growth, the department has been restructured to better support programming and service delivery. On this chart, you can see Human Services now has 3 distinct divisions and a collective work group and programming, service, education, family, and community support section. We have the Social Services Division that's led by Paul Bentley, Deputy Director, which includes the Care 7, HOPE, it's our Homeless Solutions, Community Counseling, and Community Supervision. And then Housing Services Division, which is our recently formed division, which is overseen by Levon Lamy as Deputy Director, recently promoted into that position. We have our housing voucher program, CDBG Home, and then our housing affiliate. And then we have our Community Partnerships and Resource Division that's overseen by Deputy Director Octavia Harris. We have the nonprofit affiliate known as the TCC, and then our Prevention Coalition. Then also the community education, family, and community support area, which has our Kids Zone program, our Tempe Pre, age-friendly initiatives, our school support, workforce development, and college and career readiness. These are just a snapshot of the programs that are under each of these areas. And obviously there's more programs, detailed programs that go under each of the areas that we have in a larger scale organizational chart, but just wanted to share an overview. Again, the growth has been tremendous with the department to meet the community need. I'm very proud of the staff and what they've been able to accomplish, especially during this COVID and the unsure times that we're in right now. They were able to continue their programs and services uninterrupted. That would include this presentation as far as structure, able to answer any questions you may have.
Perfect. First off, I want to say thank you guys. I mean, this is an awesome presentation. Good information, obviously, for us and to go forward with the council. I see, we talked about, look at the affordability of housing and stuff, and that's always been a hot topic of our residents to make sure that we have the right stock. I know we had a presentation and Levon was with me on this, and it was probably maybe less than a year ago. But I think it was the information that was like people didn't understand, and I think this has huge value on the structure of our plan and how we're doing it, not only at that program, but with all the other programs that we're doing within your area. So absolutely perfect, guys. I appreciate it.
This is Councilmember Garland. I just want to say I echo what Councilmember Navarro said, and I love the organization that you have and how you have that all set up for your departments. I just have to say I love org charts. I love spreadsheets and bullet points on memos. So you just speak into my heart right here. So thank you so much for presenting this to us today.
Thank you, council members.
Awesome. Okay, we're going to move on. We're going to go into the Youth Specialist Program update. Deputy Human Service Director Paul Bentley and Care 7 Manager Kristen Charlot.
Hey, Chris, I'll make you presenter right now, unless Paul, are you running it?
I can, absolutely.
Okay, we can leave you. Yeah.
Chris, this is you.
Got it. Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for giving me some time to present an update on the Youth Specialist Program. I'm going to go quickly so that we stay on time. Next slide, Paul.
Yep.
So this meets the Quality of Life 3.37 performance measure, which is a placeholder for mental health and wellness. And it also meets your committee's focus areas of D2 and D3. Just a simple quote. It's easier to build strong children than to prepare broken men. I think to update that, I would say an ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure. Quick little video. I want to show you, this is the youth specialist at SUE.
Hey, Paul, we have no sound.
Tim, if you're able to do sound quicker, I'd appreciate it.
I don't think I am. Sorry. That's always a hard part with these.
Got it. I got it. One moment.
Thank you, Paul.
Yep. Apologize. Time.
Still no sound, Paul, but I think we're okay.
So I can just kind of walk you through it if we can't get the sound, and you can certainly.
I'll play the video, Chris, while you narrate.
Okay. What Caleb is doing is he has been asked to every Wednesday participate in an all school announcement, and he teaches really, really simple to use coping skills for these children so that they can do things while they're sitting in their chairs to help regulate their bodies. And so he's talking about taking deep breaths while you're sitting in your chair so that you feel like your belly's full of air, like you just ate a big McDonald's Happy Meal, and how you can do that several times in and out and it'll make you feel better. And then I just think the kid who's demonstrating with him is adorable. Look at him. Oh yeah. And then the next thing that he teaches them is how to, while they're in their chair, how to twist their body around. I feel like it's going kind of slow. How to twist their body around and stretch, and twist their body around to the other side and stretch. And he talks about how nobody needs to know what you're doing. You don't need to tell people that it's just normal to be able to do these things while you're sitting in your chair, so that when you're feeling overwhelmed, you can kind of get your body back under control. And I think that anybody who knows kids, especially boys, knows that this is an important skill for them to learn early on. Teaching children how to regulate their own bodies and brains is how we develop adults who can cope with situations that are stressful. So the fact that Caleb has been asked to do this every Wednesday, I want you to know that's really important to us, that the principal found it to be valuable enough to do it. So let's remind ourselves that these 10 categories of adverse childhood experiences are things that a lot of our students are experiencing at home: physical and mental abuse and neglect, domestic violence, incarceration in the home, substance abuse, divorce. And this is what gets our kids really kind of prepared for behaviors at school. They come to school with all this stuff on board. And so it's real important to teach them how to cope with that. Next slide, Paul. You know, it's not even just kids anymore. Let's talk about the whole wide world. The Kaiser Family Foundation has begun to collect some data with some outcomes of what's happened to us during COVID. And you can see there's just a general kind of feeling of hopelessness. A lot, 45% say that their mental health has been affected negatively. And I think, 74% say the worst is yet to come. This kind of gives us an idea of how parents are feeling. And that is being absorbed by children. They're little sponges, and they feel this from their parents, and they take it on in their own hearts and minds. So just a little bit of a history about the program. The program that we have in Tempe Union has been around since 1994. Certainly does not look the same as it did back then. It was 12 hours a week then, was increased to 35 hours a week by Dr. Mendeville after some concerning events in the district. We are currently working 40 hours a week. It's a 50-50 funding split between the district and the city of Tempe. And they're very successful. I think that the reason that we've had to increase over the years is that the needs of the students have increased. So we're looking to transition these positions into permanent recurring funding. Next, go ahead.
Chris, I think it's important also to say right now that it's a yearly supplemental request.
Correct.
Is what keeps the program moving.
Correct. Every year we go back to council for a supplemental. So we'd like to avoid that in the future if possible. In the Tempe Elementary School District, they started to hear great things about what was going on in the high school district, and they wanted some of those services themselves. So we got, through the CARES Act funding, we were able to start a program in Tempe Elementary. They have always been very strong partners of the Human Services Department and of the city of Tempe, and they were very excited to start this program in their district. Next slide, Paul, will show some of the structure of the program. So in Tempe Union on the left, there are 7 youth specialists. They were one in every single high school. Recently, Compadre Academy closed, and those students were redistributed and transitioned back into Marcos de Niza. So we were asked by the district to take that youth specialist that was working with the Compadre students and put her at Marcos de Niza so that she could continue to support those students. They've had a fairly difficult time, I think, acclimating. So she's able to help them with that. And then in TD3, which is on the right, we originally started with 6 identified schools. The schools, in addition to these, were Connolly and Fees. We had some youth specialists get long-term job options elsewhere in other agencies, and we can understand that they needed to do that because it was permanent funding. So these were the 4 schools left. After speaking with administration at TD3, they asked us to remain only in those 4 schools because now the funding can last throughout the school year. Previously, when we were in 6 schools, it was only going to last until the beginning of February. So now that we've been able to redisperse those funds, they can stay for the whole academic year in those schools. This is a project that was done at Mountain Point High School by the youth specialist there. It was for mental health awareness. If you'll look at the bottom right, that orange t-shirt says, "Why can't I be both Black and Hispanic?" And, you know, I think that they have to identify, and I think that these are some of the things that bother students. What I wanted you to see was that their role has been expanded. The bottom 2 bullets are new additions this year. They have been fully integrated into the district's crisis response protocol. Maria Gonzalez, who oversees all of the youth specialists, who's on her honeymoon right now, so I'm giving the presentation for her, but she was asked to help craft that protocol. She has been very involved in that. And then as well in threat mitigation assessments in the elementary school district. So that's really encouraging. They've really been integrated into the school's processes. So comparing data, I think this is in Tempe Union. So on the left, that school year was in person, almost all in person. The last 2 months, April and May, were virtual. So that was 1,262 students that were seen in person. 2021 was almost all virtual. Only the last 2 months were in person. And we were still able to see a significant amount of students. And I know you are all aware of the barriers of technology and all the things going on in the home. So I think that this is very successful. What I'd like you to see is that for the first time ever, death and grief made it into the top 3 primary reasons for referrals. That was directly related to COVID. They lost family members. We measure our progress with students in these 4 quadrants: life skills, positive life choices, positive core values, and sense of self. We do that using a pre-survey and a post-survey. And the best part of those surveys are the statements that the students make at the end. But if you go to the next slide, I'll show you what the last data we collected showed. We use a Colorado Trust Toolkit that evaluates all 4 quadrants. And I think the increases are really significant. With those services from the youth specialists that are both group services and individual services, we're able to increase their sense of self. What could be more important for a teenager than to have an increased sense of self? I just think that, and the 60% increase in life skills can only translate into being a better adult once they exit high school. So these next few slides are about data. I just want to point out a few things. More girls utilize the services in high school. Not shocking. Next slide. We can see that it's really diverse populations that engage with the youth specialists. And they're presenting issues. You know, they're like all of us. They're anxious about what's going on in life right now and their future. A lot of family issues. For TD3, for the first part of the school year, we were able to help with 256 student referrals, and their primary reasons for referral, I think if, lack of motivation, I think that has a lot to do with that they were virtual. It's hard to be excited about school when you can't be at school. And we know that being at school is one of the best things that happens to a young kid. And they struggle with a lot of the same things as the big kids: depression and anxiety and family issues. Just because they're little doesn't mean they don't feel it. This slide shows you Garland needs our services the most, and Connolly is right behind them. And right now we don't have a youth specialist at Connolly. Again, look at the number of Hispanics that are reaching out. We have a very diverse staff of youth specialists, and several of them are able to connect in Spanish with their students as well, and with the parents. That's very important. We're able to connect with parents in their first language. Very important. Some of the comments I just highlighted kind of the important phrases. This program in Tempe Union is deeply embedded, and it has had such an impact. Ron Denny is the new coordinator of social emotional wellness. He used to be the school psychologist and was at Mountain Point, and has been a huge supporter of this program and very involved in removing barriers. For us, very much so. These are really extensive. TD3 had a lot to say. They are very happy that we are able to help the students solve their problems, increase their resiliency and self-regulation, probably one of the most important things. And they really want to add more. That is the executive director of student support. The next two comments are from principals. The first comment is from the principal at Garland. He knows that these services are critical for the students in his school because they have a lot of adverse childhood experiences on board, and that our ability to provide wraparound services to families is really valuable. And then the next comment is from the principal at Haldeman. We have one of our most amazing youth specialists is at Haldeman, and her ability to connect with these kids has been just, I think, life-changing. Would not be too strong for a lot of those students. And again, the ability to connect with other human services programs offered by the city of Tempe cannot be overstated. Very important to do that for those families. So after this update, I was asked for some recommendations, and truly we would love to take that final step in the next budget year and transition the youth specialists to permanent positions, so we don't have to keep asking every year. It will remain a 50-50 split with Dr. Mendeville and the Tempe Union High School District through our IGA, but to fully benefit them and to ensure that they have job permanency would be fantastic. And then with TD3, they have already reached out to us to set up meetings to explore what we're going to do after the CARES Act funding expires, and how we can come up with some possible solutions to get the program into all of their schools. That's it.
Kristen, perfect.
Yeah, glad to answer any questions.
Yeah, Councilman Garland, do you want to go first?
Sure. I have to say, my nephew lived with us for a number of months, and he went to Compadre, is where he went to school. We got him set up there, and he took advantage of the specialists that were at the school. And I have to say that they made a significant difference in his life. So I can say as firsthand experience that having these youth specialists in the schools, it is really important. Our kids need it. Our teachers and the staff at the schools really need that help. So I am very comfortable with, not speaking for Councilmember Navarro, but I would be happy to move this forward as a recommendation to look at doing this, getting somebody full-time. The problem with not having it full-time, and only doing it annually, I can see is that we don't have continuity. And I think for these kids, they build trust in somebody that they speak to. And I think being able to retain somebody that's going to be more there, that they will know that will be there more than just a year and possibly not the next year, I think is great. And then also being able to, you can retain better quality people, give them quality benefits, and we can keep those people here. And we need to work on that. And I was really surprised to learn that we did that annually, and I hope that that can change. I really appreciate the information that you've given us here. I also see the need that we have in TD3. So thank you so much for letting us know and what we can do, see what we can do as a council or as a committee right now to move to the council.
Thank you for your support.
Yeah, Chris, this is great information. Quick question: what is budgeted for our RPs per year? Do you know by chance what we're asking?
Yes, I actually have it sitting on my desk. Give me 1 second. So the total cost of the program in the high schools is $645,000 and change. It's a 50-50 split. And so the city's portion of that for this fiscal year is $322,000 and change.
Okay, and then the IGA is how long is it? Every 2, 3?
We do the IGA every year. The city attorney this year was like, why don't we do this with option to renew from now on? And I thought that was a great idea. And I know that that is something that the district would like as well. They would like multi-year IGAs. So
Perfect. And this does not conflict with SRO officer or anybody.
Absolutely not. We actually together very well.
I was gonna say they probably work together well.
100%. We're all concerned about identifying students who need that extra support and then and providing that, whatever that looks like. And they are our partners and we often work together, but many times not, lots of the referrals, in fact, the majority of the referrals are coming from teachers who recognize a student isn't able to focus on their studies, their classwork, because they're hungry, they're tired, they're sad, they're whatever it is. And they know that to get better academic results, they're going to have to get some assistance with those problems that are being faced by the students. So.
Right. And one last question. I know we got challenge on time here, but if there was a donation process or a nonprofit extension to help offset the cost on our end, is that allowed? I don't know if you have to answer that question, but is there something that we could say, hey, we have some other funds that can help offset some of that cost that the city has to burden through charities or nonprofits? Do you know the answer to that, or is that something?
I don't know the answer, but I know that we have really creative people on board who can find ways to offset costs with their donations through other things. So right. I think it's worth exploring a lot of different things. I just know that what you said is true. Permanency, and think about a freshman in high school, knowing that he has that, or he or she has that youth specialist in their life for the next 4 years.
Right.
What a difference that can make, and to their siblings who are coming after them.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Chris and Councilmember Navarro, if I may, just for a second.
Yep.
Just to clarify one piece is that with the donations, this is absolutely a wonderful opportunity for us to explore that, as well as with Family Advocacy Center in yes. parallel, not in competition at all. And then in addition to that, we absolutely are looking to put together a supplemental request for the fiscal year 23 budget process to compete with the other opportunities and needs of the community moving forward. So that information will be coming forward.
Okay, perfect. That was awesome. Okay, awesome, guys. Do we have a consensus to move forward with this?
We do. I'm with you.
Okay, Councilman Garland. All right, we have a consensus. We'll move forward, and we are done with that little topic there. Let's get on to the next one. As my computer shut down. Hold on a second. Next on the agenda is Community Safety Strategic Plan, Deputy City Manager Rosa Anchowski and Strategic Manager Waddell Holmes.
Good afternoon, Councilmember Navarro and Garland. Thank you for the opportunity to present today. As you introduced, Waddell Holmes will also be presenting a few slides. And we know with the timing of your agenda, we know we have an aggressive PowerPoint, so we will get started. So one of the things for the audience who might be watching Community safety is very important to the city of Tempe, and obviously we'll be talking about the Public Safety Advisory Task Force recommendations. But just so you both know, this is one of the recommendations that came from the Public Safety Advisory Task Force, specifically to make sure that we had a connection with our council and mayor. So thank you today for helping us accomplish one of the very important tasks, which is making sure our leadership is informed of what we are doing as a city. So in looking at the committee focus areas, and we always start with our end in mind, or at least some of the data that we do have. Historically, our police department has had two performance measures that they look at. Police trust score, which is the sentiment monthly survey that they conduct with the residents, and then the police services satisfaction with regards to our community services survey that is conducted yearly. As the data shows there, the target is 80 and we are at 71 for police trust score. And then obviously at 90 for the police services satisfaction, and we're at 73.8. So we know there's a gap to our target, but you should also know we have the data is being updated on these performance measures. So we're hoping to see some advances and some progress. Next slide. So a quick overview, Public Safety Advisory Task Force, we're coming up on 1-year anniversary. The recommendation specifically had 6 pillars. As you can see there, police model and accountability. What we have just heard from our Human Services Department, Human Services and Social Services has a huge intersectionality with what the Public Safety Advisory Task Force recommended. Data and transparency, not surprised. Data builds trust with community. Community engagement, obviously, as we started with the Public Safety Advisory Task Force, having the communities know what we are doing is very important, and honoring their work. Looking at our workforce culture and wellness, and making sure that we are looking to a progressive 20th century police department, but not just the police department, but looking at our city and how do we modernize the way we think about community safety. And then finally, the 6th pillar that we actually added that is not part of the Public Safety Advisory Task Force, but it's more about our vision regarding the city of Tempe and community safety, is looking at the environmental design that we are able to provide in alleyways and lighting and other things that help build safety for our community. And then we'll finally look at next steps to help inform where we are headed. Next slide. Public Safety Advisory Task Force, to the left, you know that our mayor hit the ground running when he took office in July and assembled a team. As soon as August came around, we were looking to see us created the task force. It was initiated in October, concluded with the 7th meeting in June. 5 pillars were initially recommended with 18 strategic directions. We are looking, as you may know, that November 2nd, we are looking to reconvene the Public Safety Advisory Task Force to bring them up to speed as far as what has occurred in our city with our citywide strategic planning. And we always say no better way to honor the work and the recommendations of our community than to make sure that we are proactively meeting with them and communicating our progress. We are also already scheduled looking ahead that in the spring, in April 2022 is when we would create the 2nd meeting with them. And then on the right there is the recommendations with the 5 pillars and then the subheaders of strategies moving forward. Next slide. Looking at police model and accountability. So when we think about strategic direction, what does that really mean to us and our community? It means restructuring public safety roles and calls for service. I equate this to our fire department, and I know Councilmember Navarro is firsthand understands this. The role of our fire departments changed years ago. It's not just calls for service for fire, but also it looked more at understanding that then 80% of our calls in Tempe from the fire medical rescue became medical calls. So it's how a city becomes flexible and understanding the needs of a community as a public servant and shifting that. No different with our police department right now. So we're looking at strategic restructuring, shift response, and integrate unbadged professional staff. It's really looking at a staff study in which our police department is conducting, and we have almost the results of that, and looking at what are the calls for service, What are the needs for us to build our department to make sure we are being responsive? Do we really need badged officers going on those calls, or could it be unbadged civilians? Blending mental health response teams. We have created a great subcommittee of human services in our police department and looking at mental health response. Who takes the lead on what call? So it's those conversations that are taking place. And then finally, which is very much of interest to all of us, is the historic idea of police aides that we have in our community, that you see them riding around giving tickets or perhaps helping people who have had car issues, investigating traffic accidents. We are looking at perhaps diverting some of those aides and creating more of a community assistant aides. Historically, it's been police, but really when you think about those aides, they are aiding our community. So those are the conversations we're having right now within our city. Next slide. One of the things we are very excited about and so thankful for our partnerships in Tempe, we have done a great job of this, is being able to communicate our needs, but more importantly, we have thought partners with us. So we have created a 911 cohort. And what that means is reimagining what 911 looks like for calls for service. But we don't have to do that alone. And what you see there are the partners that have created this cohort. Amy Padetto from Grand Canyon Institute, along with Dave Wells, as you know, many of you may know him. He used to be a Tempe resident for many years, very active. They came to us and said, how do we help with our researchers? How do we help you all do what Tempe does best, which is modernize everything and deployment of services. So GCI actually created the interest with our city and then invited the ASU, Sandra Day O'Connor College of Law, the Academy for Justice, and NAU. So they have created this trifecta of researchers who are now partnering with us. And we just had the initial meeting last Friday, and they will be looking at data along with our human services, police department, as you see there. But not just those departments, but also the Tempe courts. We know that there are touch points and all the intersectionality of that. So there'll be more to come regarding looking at that cohort and the results of that. Next slide. Thank you. And Waddell, did you want to share about the victim rights?
Sure. Thanks, Rosa, and good afternoon, Councilmember Navarro and Garland. Wanted to just share real quickly that one of the key recommendations from the task force was creating a Family and Victims Bill of Rights. And as we know that the Arizona Constitution already provides rights for victims. However, the city attorney's office is in an exploration phase of really looking at local amendments for our local victims. So we always want to make things Tempe-centric as well. So they've done some research in regards to expanding the definition of victims. They've researched across the nation, and they're currently reviewing some case law and legal challenges and any practical impediments that California has faced related to amendments in regards to changing the definition of victim. So we're really looking we're in a research mode right now, kind of exploring what are our options and what would be a better practice for Tempe in regards to our families and victims Bill of Rights. Next slide.
Wait.
So continuing on, so go ahead, Rosa.
No, go ahead.
I thought you wanted to say something. So continuing on, one of the key recommendations by the task force was really to look at how do we shift services from police to social services professionals. And as you just heard in the previous presentations with Kristen Charlo and Paul Bentley and Naomi Farrell, there is a process already in place to do that, expecting more resources and requests for resources to really build out this total shift that we're trying to make as a city. So I just wanted to give you a snapshot here of how for this fiscal year funds were allocated for social services and for those key programs that Chris mentioned earlier, as well as the Family Advocacy Center. The next slide, please. And as Chris and Paul detailed out, we wanted to just share that in the Family Advocacy Center, we have at least 3 different service providers, from human services to the police department to also ASU police, and a very comprehensive list of services that will be provided with the goal of a January 2022 opening. And this was, again, to address the recommendation and really fulfill a Tempe solution to social service professionals being integrated in our community safety plan. Next slide, please. One of the other elements of discussion that occurred several times during our 7 sessions was about exploring the Cahoots and Whitebird clinic models. One of the things that Human Services did is, as you can see, they've checked the boxes. They've done a comprehensive comparison between the Cahoots program with Tempe's Care 7. And not only were all of the elements from the Cahoots program addressed, our Tempe's Hope program also goes above and beyond that in regards to conflict resolution and housing crisis, as well as connection and referrals to resources. So this was a key area that we're going to be following up with the task force on, so that they can kind of visually see that we have done a comparison and contrast with our current services, and how over the last few years, Human Services has expanded these programs for our residents. And so this is a key component to an overarching community safety plan that's not just about policing, but it is about providing aid to the community in times of crisis. Next slide, please.
So the data and transparency, as I mentioned, is one of the best tools we have to building trust with our community. So I have mentioned before, our IT director, Mark Wittenberg, and our chief Glover and I had started meeting last October regarding the data structure of the police department and the inventory. Where we are right now, we have just released an RFP. So if I may explain it, when you're building a house, you usually need an architect to help you identify what you will need in that home as far as structure. So what we have is an RFP to have a consultant help us basically design the structure of what we need in our police department to help meet the needs of our data transparency. That this coming year is going to be pivotal for that data structure for our police department. So after the RFP for the architect, we will be looking at our budget cycle for support in building the data structure. The end goal is really, after this fiscal year, is to really have a platform that not only is useful to our police department, our officers to see data that they need to have for public safety, but also for our community to understand what is going on in our police department. So the transparency of many things that occur in our police department. And I have to say, hats off to our command staff, our chief. This has been a huge commitment and a huge lift from multiple departments when you think about data. Next slide. So one of the things that we also heard is about creating a dashboard for hate crime publications. Unfortunately, we have known in the last 18 months an increase in hate crimes. I think that you have seen that in the news recently regarding some very troubling issues in our nation. So thanks to Dr. Stephanie Dietrich, our IT department, and police, they will be publishing this very soon. What you see there is going to be a transparency of hate crimes in Tempe. Historically, just so you know, we have provided that information through our boards and commission, our Human Relations Commission, for many years. This is going to be much easier for people to know exactly what is occurring in their community. Next slide. And then the community engagement pillar, obviously looking at expanding our collaboration with community partners. So this is a partnership with Octavia, TCC, and obviously Human Services, but understanding that those community partners and human services through nonprofits are going to provide data that is important for us in making decisions. So it doesn't just come from our police department, it's also building those coalitions and partnerships with our nonprofits. For example, the TCAA is a great example of a big partner for us at the City of Tempe. And how do we bring in some of the data points that they have that perhaps help us inform decisions in the city? Next slide. Community engagement. So one of the things that Nikki Ripley and her team early when we started working cross departments on community safety is the openness of a web page and having centralized information regarding meetings and videos. You saw this with the Public Safety Advisory Task Force, and people actually went to that web page to see information regarding what the recommendations, not just locally, but National League of Cities has asked for that information. They use it at their fingertips to help lead the way for other cities as far as a best practice. So thanks to Nikki and her team, they are creating a web page that hopefully will be released in October, at the end of October, that gives all the intersectionality of what we're talking about, not just Public Safety Advisory Task Force, but what you see there, equity in action, the right to breathe, how this all helps inform and create greater community safety. Next slide.
Building on community engagement, we know that data can help tell the story, but we also want to share the progress and share our accountability to the task force and their recommendations and ultimately to our whole community. So we are setting up a platform that can be viewed as a project management platform as well as a dashboard. We can integrate our analytics with this. And we will be able to share this mid to late October. We have a soft launch coming up in the next month alongside the web page. And on the web page, you'll be able to go directly to this community safety strategic plan and show progress in regards to the recommendations, our work plans, the data that supports the decision making, and also who's accountable and who's leading this great effort for Tempe to take the lead. Next slide, please. One element of the platform is we're able to highlight each of the 6 pillars and actually show progress. You'll see at the bottom there's a legend, and we have, for example, with the pillar for police model and accountability, you can see what's on track or where there's been disruption in progress or what's also been completed as part of the strategic plan. Next slide, please. One of the other elements is you can drill into each pillar and see what the strategic directions are, as well as the details around implementation in regards to the recommendation or the other strategies that we are deploying as a city. So this is about building off of the strategic plan, the recommendations made by the task force, and also incorporating other elements that will make more of a comprehensive plan for the community. And we're really excited because we can see progress and status. And then we also will have the ability to run specific reports, whether they be like the report on the left or a tabular report on the right. This helps not only for the community, but also helps internally when we organize our committees and work on specific initiatives to bring forth this plan. We'll be able to give more frequent updates in regards to extracting that information, and we'll also be ultimately engaging with our community on getting feedback about what we're doing and how we're doing that. Next slide, please.
So one of the pillars, workforce culture and wellness, the Public Safety Advisory Task Force had many conversations about 2 things, the mental health of our officers and the mental health needs of our community. So what you see before you are programs and services that help support both of those sides equally. One of the things I just wanted to share, the Craig-Tiger Act, as we know, that took effect in law in 2018, and that is to help support the mental health of our officers after traumatic events. And one of the things we've also worked with our Tempe Officers Association is to further any type of needs, making sure that our officers are supported. You all need to know that. Obviously, our human services is providing a lot of the services our community needs, but just from Chris Charlot's presentation, the needs are increasing in our communities, not just here locally, but nationally. This pillar is pivotal to supporting and shoring our community for the future, and especially our youth. So I was glad our city manager called a meeting with our Tempe High School District executive team, Dr. Mendeville, yesterday. And we were talking about some of the items that are cross-cutting within our city and Tempe High School Union, and talked about the importance of youth specialists, of our SROs, but also they have requested to be part of these conversations for Public Safety Advisory Task Force So just as we see more community partners wanting to be part of this conversation, hats off to all of those working on this, not just Wydell and I, but people want to be part of this conversation and be part of the solutions that our community needs. Next slide. And then finally, perhaps one of the things that might be new to all of you is part of this community safety is we're integrating a pillar of environmental design for safety. I have said it time and time again, it's not all, creating community safety is a responsibility of everyone. And that means other city departments to shore up the needs. And looking at the environmental designs that we can provide structurally as we develop or have redevelop, that helps create greater safety for our community. And that will involve neighborhood associations, community development, HOAs. And this is not something new, but it's new for us to think about this in realm of overall community safety, overarching initiatives and goals. So more to come on this, but wanted to share, make sure that you knew that the environmental design is just as important as policies and practices in our Public Safety Advisory Task Force. And next slide. So finally, next steps for us, as I mentioned, November 2nd, we are reconvening the Public Safety Advisory Task Force. And then once again in April, so we're already looking to the future to make sure we are communicating. And then perhaps a question for our council today. Friday packet, asking you if you would like us to include after this session of Friday packet information for the rest of the council. We will look to you for any direction and anything that you may need to support you all. And with that, we conclude, and it's 1:11, so 3 minutes short in concluding the meeting. Thank you.
Rosa, Wydell, this is awesome. Crazy awesome. The depth of everything you guys have gone into and what has come out of that committee and the information you're providing for us. I mean, it was just a lot of information. I commend you guys. I think this is great as we're going forward with our community and just making sure that we're doing our thing to make sure that our community is safe in various ways, utilizing our resources more appropriately. The one thing that stuck out was utilizing police aides to manage traffic accidents and do those reports. And those are the things that I think a lot of people basically look at and say, well, why does an officer have to go and do that? They are busy doing other things. Can't we have a civilian, so to speak, do those types of jobs? Those are along with myriads of other things, those are the kind of things that's just impressive of just utilizing our resources in a better and wiser way. So I just awesome. So Councilman Garland.
Yeah, I agree. I love the idea of the community assistance aides and increasing those or having those out on the street. I also think, what's really incredible about the city of Tempe is how hard we work when we're really listening to our community. This public safety task force was so important to our community. And it wasn't just the city of Tempe talking about doing it. We've been doing it. We've had those meetings. We've listened to stakeholders that, with listening to difficult things from them, and we're putting it to good use. And the thing that I really like is that we show how important community engagement and transparency is. And I think that by this presentation and the things that you guys are going to be doing on the website, it just once again shows that we are doing our best at not only just communicating the information from the Public Safety Task Force, but then we're putting it out there so that people can find it. And I was just going to say, when we were talking about the CAHOOTS model, I've done so much research on the CAHOOTS model. I wanted to fly out to see it, to go to Oregon and just trace them and track them and see what they did. And what was amazing is then meeting with our human services staff when I started on council and learning that we are checking the boxes. We really do have all those things. It's not called the crisis assistance helping out on the streets model, the CAHOOTS model, but we're doing them, and that was really impressive. One of the things I was going to ask is with the website, I love that website. Again, that's fully transparent. I love that, the information that we're going to be able to share with everybody. Is it possible to be able to put a link I'm assuming from our Human Service and Community Safety page, that if people wanted to see that, they could go over there. The other thing I was also thinking is if you've got that website, that dashboard website, and we are getting an update at one of our meetings, it would be kind of nice to be able to put that on there somewhere to let people know that an update to this program is going to be on, you know, whatever the date is of the next meeting. I was just thinking about that.
Councilman Garland, that's perfect. Absolutely perfect. You know, with everything that we've mentioned today and in the past, if under our, you know, so-called page, we have those links to these presentations and the information, I think that's just something smart to do for anybody that has any questions. You know, easily navigate to, you know, us, and you can get it through here, or maybe there's some other resources you can navigate to. But those are the one things that I think that as a community that really does help everybody out is our website is easily navigated to those resources so they can find them. So perfect.
Yeah, and I love, and it's going to be sticking in my head now. I love the work that you guys have done, and thank you so much, because I know that a lot goes into this to bring this to us also, and to build that website. But I do like something, and I'll say that that Rosa said earlier, is that data builds trust, and sharing that information also builds that trust. And I think we are really going to be able to do that in the community, and we're going to be leaders in that. So thank you very much.
Thank you both, and absolutely, we will link once we launch the web page and the dashboard that we are building. They should link to your council committee work, because it is absolutely related along with other departments and what they are doing. So it is really the cross-cutting things of everything going on in our city that helps, to your point, Councilmember Garland, build trust. The more we are able to communicate those things, the more the community understands, and that is the byproduct, building trust.
Yeah, exactly. Well, thank you very much, both of you, for attending today.
Thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you, guys. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Councilman Garland.
All right, so we're going to go to 4B1, which is new items for consideration. So for our next Human Services and Community Safety Committee meeting, it'll be October 22nd, and our topics for that presentation is going to be the Tempe Community Council needs assessments, social detriments of health and mental health roadmap, and a presentation from the Tempe Coalition on an ordinance to regulate the sale of flavored tobacco in Tempe. I also want to ask staff to present on the Hometown for All initiative, specifically to learn more about the deed restrictions and clawback clauses when it comes to new affordable housing developments. I'm also interested in exploring some type of policy that can outline what happens when the city sells our own property, and how does that relate to the Hometown for All initiative. All right, so then we're going to go to 4C1, which are announcements. Do we have any announcements? Nope. All right, we're going to go to 5, meeting date. The next one is Friday, October 22nd at noon, and we hope that you all will join us again. And let's see. It'll Councilman Garza. Okay, and that's it. I'm looking on my notes. I don't see anything else, so we will be adjourned, Joel, unless you have anything else.
No, that's it. We're adjourned.
All right, we're adjourned. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.